This is for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Themidnightburn. What if the most trusted voices in your community, the ones who preach about salvation every Sunday morning, are the same ones destroying innocent lives behind closed doors? This story does not condemn in any way the church where praise, learning, and worship are taught with God's grace. Tonight, we're exposing a web of sexual abuse, financial corruption, and systematic cover-ups of the wolves in sheep's clothing that does the opposite, behind closed doors, and reaches from the megachurch of cities to small-town Mississippi congregations of religious power. This isn't just about a few bad actors. This is about an entire system designed to protect predators while silencing their victims, and it's happening all across the Bible Belt of America. Let me tell you about a woman who carried a secret for 40 years. A secret that would eventually expose one of Mississippi's most disturbing church scandals. In 1982, this 12-year-old girl started attending youth group at Broadmoor Baptist Church in Madison, Mississippi. Her youth pastor was David Ingram, 28 years old, married and trusted by hundreds of families. What happened next would haunt her for decades. It started with private counseling sessions. Ingram would leave gifts and notes in his desk drawer for this young girl. He'd give her rides home alone in his car, sharing intimate details about his marriage problems. By the time she was 15, Ingram was kissing her and telling her he loved her, that he was going to leave his wife to marry her. The abuse escalated. Sexual touching in his office, at his home, even on church bus trips where he would force the girl's hand on himself under a blanket, while other youth group members sat nearby, completely unaware. When this victim finally disclosed what she called an affair to the lead pastor, Jim Futrell, his response was chilling. He prayed for her, then told her he couldn't do anything about Ingram because he was no longer the youth pastor. But here's the twisted part. Ingram remained an active church member for 22 more years, continuing to help with youth activities and hosting Bible studies in his home. The Guidepost Solutions investigation revealed that Ingram never denied the allegations. He offered apologies and paid this woman and her family approximately $70,000 over the years for therapy and other treatment. With the agreement, she signed a non-disclosure agreement, essentially hush money to keep the truth buried.
An independent third-party firm to conduct an investigation in 2022. This newly released report goes into more detail about the first abuse allegations from the 1980s, but they're limited in some details tied to the second allegation. That's because of an active criminal investigation. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation confirming it is conducting an investigation, but because it's an ongoing investigation, they can't comment further. Here's what we do know based on the report. The woman who made the second report was sexually assaulted at a local water park when she was 12 years old. It did not involve anyone at Broadmoor, but she later starts going to Broadmoor's youth group and tells the youth pastor about the sexual assault. He accuses her of lying, saying she would be more upset if that had actually occurred. The girl keeps going to recreation events with the church and meets a 20-year-old recreation assistant who would help hide her in the gym to avoid attending youth group. A relationship develops between the two, and she alleges he sexually abused her when she was 13 by having sex with her. The next year, their relationship was discovered, and a youth volunteer asked the teen to leave Broadmoor. It was more recently that the victim discovered that recreation assistant was serving as youth minister at another church. She reported it to the Southern Baptist Convention and says he's left the church after being confronted with the allegations. Broadmoor says it has made its congregation aware of the second report and that they welcome any assistance by the public to provide any information concerning these allegations.
During the investigation into her case, authorities uncovered a second abuse incident from the early 1990s involving a different victim and staff member. The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation is currently conducting a criminal investigation into this case. This 13-year-old girl had already been sexually assaulted at a water park by someone unrelated to the church. When she disclosed this trauma to the youth pastor, his response was to accuse her of lying, saying she would appear more upset if a sexual assault had actually occurred. A 20-year-old recreation assistant at the church began helping her avoid youth group by hiding her in the gym. What developed was a predatory relationship where this man sexually abused the 13-year-old girl. When the relationship was discovered, she was asked to leave the church at age 14. The abuser simply left quietly after being confronted. This is the pattern: abuse, silence, protection of the institution over the victim. But Broadmoor Baptist isn't alone. Mississippi has become ground zero for a disturbing trend of church leaders preying on the very people they're supposed to protect. John Douglas Jones, former youth pastor at First Baptist Church in Long Beach, was arrested in June 2024 on charges of sexual battery and touching a child for lustful purposes. The investigation began in November 2022 for incidents dating back to May 2021. Jones was also a reserve deputy with the Harrison County Sheriff's Department, a man in multiple positions of trust who allegedly used both to access victims. Tyler Selby served as music minister at 4 different Baptist churches across Mississippi: Robinwood Baptist in Saucier, Emmanuel Baptist in Ocean Springs, Central Baptist in Macomb, and Lemoyne Boulevard Baptist in Biloxi. Authorities discovered Selby had used a young boy in his legal custody to create child pornography, streaming the abuse live to international viewers. Despite this horrific crime, he received only 20 years in prison. Daniel Paul Harris co-founded the Kyman Center, providing programs for children with disabilities, while simultaneously serving as pastor at Olive Branch Christian Church. Between 2015 and 2018, Harris molested several underage boys. He received 18 years in prison. But how many victims could have been spared if the warning signs had been heeded earlier? Then there's Zachariah Floyd Strickland, a case that perfectly illustrates how dangerous predators move between states and congregations. In Michigan, Strickland pled guilty to 4 counts of criminal sexual conduct, 3 counts of child sexually abusive activity, and 4 counts of human trafficking of minors. His sentence, just 12 months in jail. After his conviction, Strickland relocated to Mississippi and became involved with Galilee Missionary Baptist Church in Mount Olive. By early 2025, he and a deacon were charged with embezzling nearly $90,000 in church funds. The pattern continues: abuse, minimal consequences, relocation, more crimes. Mississippi's church abuse crisis mirrors a national epidemic that's finally coming to light. The Southern Baptist Convention, America's largest Protestant denomination, was forced to release a report in 2022 revealing over 700 cases of abuse involving 380 accused clergy members. These weren't isolated incidents. They were systematic cover-ups maintained on secret lists for decades. Gateway Church in Dallas saw founding pastor Robert Morris indicted on 5 counts of child sexual abuse in 2025. The victim, Cindy Clemisher, says Morris assaulted her starting when she was just 12 years old. The church leadership knew about these allegations for years but chose protection over justice. Hillsong Church's celebrity pastor Carl Lentz was accused of sexual abuse by his nanny, while founder Brian Houston was charged in Australia for covering up his own father's decades of child abuse within the church. The common thread: money, power, and reputation matter more than the lives they're destroying. These aren't just statistics or headlines. These are real children whose lives have been shattered by the very people they were taught to trust unconditionally. Churches use a predictable playbook: deny the allegations, discredit the victim, shuffle the abuser to a new location, and preach about forgiveness for the perpetrator, while the victims are left to suffer in silence. The financial stakes are enormous. Megachurches operate as multi-million-dollar enterprises where scandal threatens not just reputation, but massive revenue streams. This creates powerful incentives to cover up rather than confront abuse. But here's what makes this even more insidious. These institutions use faith itself as a weapon. Victims are told that speaking out shows a lack of faith, that they should forgive and move on, that God will handle justice in His own time. Meanwhile, predators continue to have access to new victims. If you're a person of faith, and faith can be a beautiful, life-affirming force, you have to ask yourself some hard questions. How many children are being abused right now in churches across Mississippi and America, while leadership looks the other way? How many families have been torn apart not by the initial abuse, but by their church's response to it? When will we demand the same standards of accountability from religious institutions that we expect from schools, youth sports, and other organizations that serve children? The truth is, most religious leaders are good people trying to serve their communities, but the system that protects the bad ones makes all of them complicit. Matthew 7:15 warns us, "Beware of false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves." These cases prove that Scripture's warning is more relevant today than ever. The darkness I've shared with you tonight isn't fiction. It's happening in communities just like yours, to families who trusted their spiritual leaders completely. Have you or someone you know been affected by church abuse or corruption? Drop your thoughts in the comments. No censorship, no judgment. And if you want more uncensored truth from murder cases, corruption, and the mysterious, then please follow my channel. There's definitely more to come. If this story made you angry, if it made you question what's happening in institutions you thought you could trust, then share this video. Share it with people who need to know that their voice matters, that speaking truth to power isn't just brave, it's necessary. The only way this changes is if we refuse to stay silent. If we demand better from the institutions that claim to serve God while serving only themselves. Until next time, catch the dice, they rolling.